To talk with America's mayor. And tonight, we're going to have a good deal of time to talk. And I think we have several crucial subjects to talk about that go to the heart of America's security, don't they? One of them is the reaction of this administration to Russia's striking down an American military aircraft, which is, of course, what a drone is. A drone is for the purpose of gathering intelligence and uh, determining how safe America is and determining what our enemies or potential enemies are doing, and has a perfect right to fly over open international waters and airways. And in the course of doing that, it was shot down by a hostile power, Russia. Now, you can take it lightly. You can. You can say, "Oh, we don't want trouble with Russia," and fine, okay. Here's how that gets chalked up. Another act of Biden cowardice. Another act of slapped a little moron in the face, and he'll just smile at you. There's no doubt that those people in Ukraine who have lost their lives, who think they should be grateful to Biden for what he's done in helping them fight back against the Russians, actually have a much bigger grievance, which is, had we not had such a cowardly, decrepit little president, that never would have happened. Of course, there isn't a person of any serious status in America or anywhere that believes that Russia would have attacked Ukraine if Trump were there. Of course, Trump was there, and they didn't. So you don't need much proof in that regard. Nor was there any talk of it or discussion of it. And you'd have to be a seriously afflicted Trump derangement syndrome patient to not realize that to a very large extent, the attack on Ukraine was an opportunity that Putin saw and seized as a result of what he observed in Afghanistan, which was probably the most disgusting and horrible display of cowardice on the part of an American president, and probably two things actually: his incompetence and his disloyalty to the United States. The incompetence comes in the withdrawal of troops before civilians. There's no excuse for that, but complete idiocy and stupidity to prove to the world that Secretary Gates was a prophet when he said several years earlier in his book that Joe Biden never made a correct decision about foreign policy. Well, he topped that off with doing something that a child would realize you shouldn't do, which is to take troops out before civilians in a country beset by terrorists. So that's on the incompetent side. On the side of being someone who appears to have loyalties to a country other than America, that would be the withdrawal of the Bagram Air Base 400 miles from China. There's no one that could have expected an American president to give that gift to China, except maybe we should have expected it when we knew how many millions, and we still don't know, the results are still coming in on the millions that went to a number of members of the Biden crime family from the Chinese Communist Party. Now, the Chinese Communist Party, and people are searching for, I hope they're just saying this, and people are not really that stupid. Two things. Did Joe Biden get any of that money? And what was it for? If you don't know that Joe Biden got that money, you're a fool. And if you don't know what it was for, you're a bigger fool. Please get somebody to handle your assets and help you to cross the street. The Chinese communists do not give money away for the heck of it. The Biden family had no product except one, which they sold to a fare thee well. And that's Joe Biden's oath of office, Joe Biden's office, Joe Biden's loyalty to the United States, which they sold for cash. A lot of cash. China wasn't the only one. Russia also. So you want to start exhausting the reasons that China turned over somewhere around 35 million at least to the Biden family in a 5 or 6 year period while he was vice president and thereafter? It was to buy his loyalty, to take it away from the United States and attach it to China, which he displayed and has now displayed over and over again. Had he not gotten money, people would question if he did, giving up an airbase 400 miles from China. They would say there's no earthly reason for doing that other than to make China safer and America more endangered. And then we can go on with his failure to question their homicidal conduct with regard to COVID, which could easily be repeated since we didn't challenge it originally. We could say that explains the completely idiotic statement that China's really our friend, which is what he said during the campaign for president. So if you have trouble realizing the motive for the paying of the money, you're not a very smart person. You're really not, or shrewd. And if you have any trouble realizing that Joe got the money, I will give you a little bit of a break for that because everyone hides it. This includes the people who go after Trump, who hide it. I've seen it in the Post, but buried. And hardly ever hear it on Fox. Instead, I hear this sort of like we're still trying to figure out if Joe got money. I don't know. Suppose I told you that Hunter Biden has said that Joe got 50% of all the money that he earned over 30 years. Would you say that at least until further explained, is a sufficient explanation of what happened to the money? The co-conspirator made a statement which is known in the law as an admission. It is admissible against him as evidence that it happened. The only definitive proof that it happened would be to see it. Usually we substitute testimony for that. Person testified, I paid the bribe too. That's testimony, you got a bribe. Hunter Biden's written text statement, over 30 years, I paid Pop 30% of my income, is an admission that tends to prove that Joe Biden got the money. So please stop saying there's no evidence that Joe got money. Is among the most solid evidence the law has to offer. It's called an admission for the fact that he got money. So stop it. Stop the continued cover up and face the fact that we have a criminal in the White House. And the Congressman Comer is doing a very good job of actually showing us we may very well have a criminal family in the White House. A lot of them are getting money from the Chinese communists. And we can't figure out why. And we have this major cave-in to China going on. And forget just justice and crime and proper approach to criminal justice. What about national security? We're not supposed to have an interest in the fact that our president's family was paid untold, disgusting amounts of money by our biggest adversary? Well, please, we can't be that weak. Not if we want to be the guardian of liberty for ourselves, our children, and the world. I think something happened yesterday that is of tremendous significance, and it's at the core. It's at the core of some of our problem, or a lot of our problem with the banks, and it's at the core of our problem with China. In addition to the fact that our president has sold out to China, and that is how we use the green agenda as our priority. And it excuse the expression, it trumps everything else. It becomes more important than any other consideration, like our national security, like the security of our money in a bank. Two examples. The board, made up of only one person who ran a bank, ran into a bank, a bunch of silly women, and a few other people who had nothing to do with banks, and somebody that had felt it necessary to run off to a Shinto shrine after Trump was elected. I wonder what they did at the Shinto shrine after Trump was elected. I'd love to hear I'd love
Do
to
you think crying was involved?
crying. I don't know. Maybe chanting. Maybe some kind of Shinto chant, or I don't know why they. I mean, but in essence, anybody that has to run off to a Shinto shrine for therapy after Trump is elected should not really be in charge of your money. Uh, so they made decisions completely inconsistent with profit. They made decisions that had nothing to do with whether your money was going to make money. They made decisions based on the green agenda, the communist Marxist green agenda, which is based on the theory that the world will end because of climate change. Well, just today, it was revealed that the poster child for climate change, Greta Thunberg, you know Greta Thunberg, right? We all feel sorry for Greta Thunberg, right? Aren't we supposed to all feel sorry for her? Well, we all feel sorry for her. But Greta turns out to be a major liar of world renown. Greta texted in 2018 that today, in 2023, basically the world would come to an end if we didn't do something about fossil fuels. And it would come to an end because of climate change. I don't know if she described in the text, because it's since been deleted. Part of it's been recovered. Exactly how it would end. Maybe the climates just wouldn't change, and we remain statically winter or something. In any event, it turns out that Greta is dreadfully wrong. Her statement turns out to be stupid. You heard me. Stupid. Probably not as stupid as multi-billionaire Al Gore saying we'd get flooded by 2010. That was equally stupid. But many stupid people joined the cult of global warming. And when they couldn't prove that things were getting warmer, or that would necessarily be all that damaging, that we could adjust to it. And possibly the more prudent thing would be to adjust rather than to change something that no matter what we do, we may not be able to change. There is no scientist in the world, crooked or not, that can tell you if we take all these measures they're talking about, which will prove to be impossible and ruinous to our economy and to millions of people coming out of poverty, that it actually will affect the universe. They don't know that. We could cut off all the carbon we wanted. We don't know it will change things. They don't know that. They're lying to you for money. And the ones who aren't are jackasses, self-important jackasses who don't have an ounce of common sense. They do not know what the hell they're talking about. The intelligent and prudent thing to do with regard to climate change is, first of all, don't try to change it and stop calling it climate change. What the hell is wrong with climate change? It happens all the time. What are they talking about? What is dopey Greta talking about when she says in 2023 the world is going to end if we keep using fossil fuel because of climate change? The climate's not going to change? The climate's going to change backwards? Do you realize what fools they think we are? And because of that, we are destroying our economic wealth. That bank was destroyed by a bunch of climate change cultists because of the investments they made, the woke investments they made, the literally idiotic idea that you'd put, what was it, 57% of their assets in long-term investments that had no interest, bonds that had no interest, on the thought that they'd never charge interest. And once they did, the bank became useless, possibly for several reasons. One, they had no risk officer. They had diversity offices. They had minority offices. They had woke offices, and they had woke ceremonies. But they didn't do things like take a look at the balance and diversity of their risk, since they put more of their assets in long-term questionable investments, in investment in general, twice as much than any other bank and peer banks. Twice as much. Nobody comes along and check marks that and says, hey, take a look at that, you bunch of silly women and men, a bunch of jerky idiots. How about you all get off the board here and bring in somebody that knows something about banking? But I'll tell you one thing about these silly women and men. A couple of them at least sold out right before. They did what is known as the Pelosi crime that she got away with for years and became a multimillionaire. They traded on inside information. The chairman of the bank, Becker, and the number 2 guy, Beck, interesting, both sold stock a day or two before they told people to be kind. So are we going to investigate this or not? Or is this going to be another of the Democrat examples of the double standard that we have in the United States, where Democrats can do anything they want, like Hunter Biden, and not be pursued for crimes? And as to Republicans, Democrats will use your taxpayer dollars to make up crimes, which brings me to Mr. Bragg in New York, who does not prosecute people who assault old women, people who throw people on the tracks, people who steal or rob. He wasn't going to. Just let's think of the operation of this yo-yo's brain. This guy wasn't going to prosecute people who participate in armed robbery if they didn't shoot anybody with the gun. In other words, if you go in and hold up a store with a gun, but you don't use it, you don't get prosecuted. That was in January 1 or 2 of this year. He put out a statement like that. You figure you get fired the minute you write that, right?
Yes, sir.
As a prosecutor, you figure somebody would say, maybe there's a better job for you, like a dog catcher or something like that. And you probably wouldn't be particularly good at that. And you'd probably be unkind to the dogs, even though you like criminals. So this useless traitor of a DA is pursuing Trump for something that's 7 years old, that he's been pursued twice for which he's actually received damages in his favor, and for which the United States Attorney's Office concluded he shouldn't be prosecuted. But he is now on the verge, they say, of going to prosecute Trump for paying Stormy Daniels 100. I've forgotten how much it was, whatever the amount is. Whatever the amount was, he paid her uh, to sign an agreement that she would not talk about her allegation that they had an affair. He denies that they had such an affair, which I believe, but that's not the relevant part of that. The part of it is an allegation such as that can be equally damaging, whether true or not. Meaning, once it's made, a certain number of people will believe it, and if it stands, even more people will believe it, and it will be very, very damaging to your family, to your wife, to your children, particularly since you have a minor child. So I don't know if it's 50-50, but some percentage of those allegations are true and some percentages are untrue. Let's dispel the myth that women don't lie. They do. Don't get insulted, women. You know why you lie? Because you're human. You're not saints. You're not all the Virgin Mary. Sorry. And neither are we all Jesus or Joseph. Yeah. And in terms of our morality, we're about the same. Remember when they had the statistics that a lot more men cheated than women? Almost all of those men were heterosexual. So who the hell are they cheating with, the same woman? It has been proven without any doubt that women lie much more about that than men do when a survey is taken. So when they start this stuff that cheating is a man thing, I'm sorry, there's a saying, derivation of which I do not know. It takes two to tango. You guys lie as much as we do. You don't engage in violent crime as much, I'll give you that. But lying, no distinction. Think of how women lie to each other. Watch those reality shows. They're lying all the time. That isn't because they're worse than men. It's not because they're better than men. It's a human frailty, lying. And where it comes to sex, to say that that's the one thing women wouldn't lie about, that's the thing that people will lie about the most. It is the most complex, emotional, fraught with jealousy and anger and resentment and insecurity of all the things that we engage in. How about we grow up, huh? So when a woman says that a man sexually did something to her, the man is entitled, like everybody else, to a presumption of innocence legally. And in terms of common sense and rationality, there's about as much of a chance that it's true as false. So I think if you knew Donald Trump and you knew his proclivities for cleanliness um, and you knew what he thought, whether true or not, what he thought and thinks Stormy Daniels is, I think you would realize that there's no chance that he would have had sex with her. But put that aside, there's no crime here. You're entitled to pay someone if they make the free decision to keep their mouth shut about an allegation about you that is true or untrue. There are literally millions of non-disclosure agreements executed by people in America and all over the world as a legitimate legal device to save people from the expense of unnecessary litigation and to save people from the damage to reputation, justified or unjustified. Two adult human beings can make a choice of what the value of that is, and if they want to go forward with it. It's not a crime. There's no place no place written down that it's a crime. When Were she forcing him to do it? It'd be extortion, but she wasn't. He did it freely. Were he threatening her with all kinds of things? It would be some form of extortion also. No allegation that he was doing it. She wanted the money. She took the money. And she presumably used it. What's the crime? Campaign finance? Well, first of all, Bragg doesn't get to prosecute federal campaign finance laws. The federal government has already decided it wasn't. Number two, the vast majority of scholars on campaign finance says it is not a violation because even though it might affect a campaign and your reputation in the campaign, you do it anyway as a matter of reputation. It's not primarily motivated by the campaign. And I think even if it is primarily motivated, if there's also another motivation, it largely doesn't become a campaign violation. What's the other motivation? The other motivation is to protect yourself and your children from an allegation that you did this, true or not true. And therefore, it's not a campaign contribution of some kind or campaign expenditure of some kind. It's a personal, since it has a personal nature to it, that makes it too ambiguous to get involved in the crime of, violating the campaign finance law. What I just said to you is the majority legal opinion shared by many, even of the Mueller prosecutors, including Weissman, the toughest guy who said it on television a couple of days ago, but it's also in the Mueller report. So I don't know what Bragg is doing. Well, I don't know what Bragg is doing in general. And then he's relying on the testimony of a man, and we won't go into great detail about this, that the U.S. Attorney's Office really threw out of their office because every other thing out of him was a lie. I mean, should this ever become a trial, he'll be on the witness stand for days. I'll volunteer to cross-examine him if you want. You'll have a great show if I cross-examine him. It was the best thing I did, cross-examine. One case is breaking people down and getting them to confess like Perry Mason. It's true. It's true. Did it way back when I was a kid. He would be a piece of cake. How about
handle that?
Well, I want to. Oh gosh, I'd stretch it out because it'd be fun. He's such a dodo too. Man, when they're stupid, it really is easy to get them. I remember I prosecuted a congressman. I won't say who he is now, but I practiced doing it with my co-counsel, who later became a judge for 13 years and Attorney General of the United States, and he played the defendant. And we cross-examined for about 3-4 days. I cross-examined, and it was tough. We were pretty even. I got on the witness stand. I started cross-examining him, and I realized I was working with about 50 less IQ points. He was stumbling and bumbling and confusing things and making up lies to cover up lies. So maybe I started off with about 6 lies, and I ended up with about 20. And I played them out and played them out and played them out and had the jury almost laughing at him. And finally, I asked the ultimate question, and I gave him a register to look at. And he got so nervous that he pushed his hand through his glasses and pushed the lens out of his glass. And I said to him, do you see your name there? Because if his name were there, it would have shown that this was payment to a law firm. And he said, no. I said, we can't hear you. Could you say it a little louder? No. I said, Your Honor, would you instruct the witness? I know he doesn't want to answer it because he's just spent the last 2.5 days lying. But would you ask the witness to say it in a voice that's loud enough for the jury to hear? And the judge said, well, Mr. Giuliani is correct. I can't hear it. I think I know what the answer is, but I can't hear it. So Congressman, whatever his name is, please say it so you can hear it. And he said it. And he said, could I have a recess? And he came back that afternoon and pled guilty. Cohen, I think, would ask for, Cohen would take, after sniffling and crying and wetting his pants, he would take out his white napkin and go like this. The guy's a pathological liar. Ask the Southern District of New York. Only a distorted prosecutor like Bragg could possibly want to use him. A prosecutor who doesn't prosecute people who beat up women, old women. Something a little lighter, Ted.
Let's give it to me, Mayor.
So I have a all of us have had good have good friends, right?
Yes, sir.
And I've had several good friends that were dogs. I consider Goalie my dog when I was mayor, which I got for Andrew and Caroline, but it was my dog too. I got him about 2 months after being mayor and had him all during the time I was mayor. He was a beautiful white Labrador, and he was smarter than half the people I know. And he was my best friend for a while when I was mayor, and took me through the snow and saved all of us, including the police, on a snowy night when there were 2 feet of snow, and he made the path to the police department from City Hall, and used to go around parties at Gracie Mansion, of which we had many, trying to find the sloppiest and most awkward people. So when their food fell, he would get it. Goalie was loads of fun. He would chase squirrels all over the backyard of Gracie Mansion. Goalie's a breed since 1991, according to the American Kennel Club, and I didn't even know this. Is the most popular dog in the United States.
What's that?
The Labrador Retriever.
Historically has been the number one.
Yes. For the first time in 21 years, another dog replaced it, and it's a French bulldog. Now, my in-laws had a beautiful French bulldog that I also liked, not to the level of Goalie, but I liked him. But there's no comparison between the two dogs. The French bulldog is sniffling all the time.
A lot of spittle.
Oh my God!
Breathing.
Because the poor dog has been bred to be sick. Because his nose here.
Hold that up over there. Okay, that's good.
You see that nose? That nose is not properly placed on the face so he can breathe properly. It's built into the dog. These dogs are unhealthy dogs. They die young, and they have very great difficulty breathing by nature of the way they were bred.
So you're taking issue with the new...
the British Veterinary Association. Okay, how about this? The British Veterinary Association has urged people not to buy flat-faced dogs due to them being prone to breathing, spinal, eye, and skin conditions that are fatal. French bulldogs can be a polarizing topic, says Dr. Kerry Stefaniak, a Glendale, Wisconsin-based veterinarian who warns that Frenchie ailments can be very expensive to treat. Now, if you want a Frenchie, fine, have a Frenchie. They are actually lovely dogs. The dog I'm talking about that was my friend was a very good dog. He did have a little bit of a difficult life because he was ill all the time. And there were times he was really labored in breathing, and you felt really sorry for him. On the other hand, the Labrador Retriever is arguably one of the 3 or 4 smartest dogs, along with Golden Retrievers, German Shepherds. Those 3 dogs are the breeds that are used for sniffing out bombs, sniffing out drugs, and they're also used for something very, very important, which is seeing eye dogs. And the breed used most often as a seeing eye dog now is the Lab, and the Lab, the Retriever, and the Shepherd. And the Lab is used, and I know this because Goalie was bred to be a seeing eye dog, and washed out because he had cataracts. So the guy that we got him from, the Seeing Eyes for the Blind, said, I think he had already gone pretty close to finishing training, and they realized he had cataracts. So he's a very kind dog, and they develop, particularly the ones I guess that were bred to be seeing eye dogs, they actually like people more than animals. I mean, so if there are a bunch of dogs around, a bunch of people around, they'll go stay with the people because that's where they were bred to, take care of people. And they are lovely, lovely dogs. I mean, they don't have a mean bone in their body. They don't bite anybody. They are very, very frisky. So you do have to be ready for a 2-year puppy stage where they're going to, unless you breed them correctly, they could do havoc to your house. There's no question about that. But I like dogs like that. I like dogs that are active. And then after 2 years old, they calm down and they're really terrific. And if you breed them properly, you're not going to have that problem. And then the number 3 dog is the golden retriever, which to me is almost indistinguishable from the lab, except it has more hair. The Goldens that I've known seem to me to be, if you cut the hair off, they seem like they're labs. German Shepherds are my second favorite dog because when I was a child, my best friend was Rex, who was a very mean German Shepherd that used to bite people except me. And he was the dog of my mother's best friend. They'd always keep him locked up. And one day I got myself into his room. And when her friend saw it, she was so worried that the dog would eat me up. And the dog was licking the heck out of me. And every time I went over, I would get to play with Rex and nobody else could. Rex was a German Shepherd. So it used to be labs were number 1 since 1991. And now they made French bulldogs number 1. And I think this is very unfair. But this could be another one of these woke things, since these dogs are flaunted by the rich and famous. Did you know that?
No idea.
Of the 716,500 purebred dogs voluntarily registered in the U.S., nearly 1 in 7 was a French bulldog. And people like Reese Witherspoon, Hugh Jackman, Leonardo DiCaprio, and Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez Stalin has a Frenchie. They all have Frenchie. And so they are the celebrity dog. So that would figure, right? The celebrity dog wins. Believe me, get a lab. So what do we have in the way of we have any text messages you want to respond to first before we do calls? We don't want to ignore the text message people now that we've become technologically advanced here.
And we have a new screen I'll show you after we're off the air. We can now display our live chat section on the screen, and it combines YouTube, Facebook, and a few of the other places.
We should get a monitor that we could turn around so I could see that too.
So you can see that's something we should do, because if you could see this, Mayor, it's like live comments coming.
Could we put a monitor like right here and then I could see it?
Yes, we could.
Well, we're gonna by next week we're gonna try to do that.
This is right now what I have here. This is the screen that people can see. See on the left of the chat.
So if we got a monitor about that big, right?
Yep.
About that big? Look at me. About that big. And put it there?
Yeah.
And attached it to that? Would I see it then?
That's right. And then you can respond live as that would help too with everything we're doing behind the scenes here.
Yeah, maybe I could see what's going on.
So we were getting a lot of comments, a lot of people talking about dogs, as of course we've been discussing dogs. Molly Dawn has a golden retriever that almost never barks. Did your dog Goalie bark?
Not excessively, no. No, I mean, in fact, I'm trying to remember it now. You know, we're going back 20 years. And he lived at Gracie Mansion. But, you know, that would give you occasion to bark because people would come to the door of Gracie Mansion all the time, even though it was behind an enclosure. And he used to stand at the gate and watch everybody go by. No, he didn't bark. And if he did, he didn't bark much because I can't remember it. Dr. Maria has a pit bull, and I know that everybody is against pit bulls. This dog is the sweetest dog you ever met. In fact, the only reason the dog's a problem is the dog is powerful. And so was Goalie. I mean, the dog was about 70 pounds. He's powerful, and he thinks he's a puppy. The first thing he does, but he barks like hell. And problem is, he barks. If you came in, he'd start licking it. I'm serious. You walk in the house, he'll bark. You'll be scared because he's a pit bull and he's big. And but if you know him, you just stand there. Even if you don't know him, he'll come up to you and then he'll kiss you. And all of a sudden, he'll realize I can rob the whole house. But there still is he's still very, very useful because the barking scares the hell out of people. And if you see him, you're going to run the other way.
I've met this dog.
Yeah, I mean, but he is the sweetest dog. He is adorable. But in playing with you, I mean, he'll play rough or he'll play sweet. Depends on you. He tends to play rough with men and softer with women. But if you want to start roughhousing with him, you better be ready. But there's none of this stuff that he bites anybody or he's as sweet as Goalie was. No, to answer the question directly, you may be right. Maybe the labs don't bark very much, which of course, would make a difference if you want a watchdog. I mean, if you want a watchdog, it's good to have a dog who barks a fair amount, right?
That's right, Mayor. And at this time, the phone lines have been ringing off the hook. So maybe would you like to take a couple?
Sure, we'll take a few, and then we'll go back to the monologue. Although we're way into the show, I didn't realize that.
We are moving right along. Remember, this is the fastest hour.
It sure is. It sure is.
And we are moving right along, getting a lot of calls. Let's go to. Let's see if we can get it. Let's go to Tennessee. Of course, we're just recently in Tennessee.
Yeah.
So this call is in.
Enjoyed Nashville a lot. I'm happy to go back there anytime.
So we are now calling Knoxville, Tennessee. Sterling in South Carolina.
Well, let's move on.
This is South Carolina. Not there. And now we will try Utah.
Well, there was an excellent article today or yesterday on how effective charter schools are. Charters enroll 59% of all public school students in Harlem District 5. And 2/3 of the K through 8 kids. And it has boosted district-wide performance on state tests for everyone. It's led to higher per pupil spending in public schools and smaller size classes. And while the charters get on by roughly half the per student spending, they outperform the public schools. But the performance of the public schools has been lifted, particularly the Black and Latino children. So why is it that the communist Democrats controlled by the teachers union are trying to block any new charter schools so kids can have a good education? That's the question I think that many minorities have to ask who vote Democrat. The Democrats are acting contrary to the interests of a good education for your children because they are bought and paid for by the communist teachers union, who kept our schools closed, particularly in New York, whose performance has dropped more than any other place in America, thanks to the New York teachers union. Apparently, we're having a little bit of technical difficulty. China, Russia, and Iran are holding joint military drills. That has got to be, without any doubt, of great concern to us. Hello?
This is Gary, Indiana.
Hello?
Hello?
This is Rudy Giuliani. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
You want to put down the phone in the back? Want to put that down?
I don't have nothing. They're
okay. Well, we'll move on.
Hacking me.
Thank you very much. We're gonna have to straighten this out, Ted. It's annoying me.
What's that?
The calling part. We're going
Okay.
to have to straighten out so they can call us because this is not right for our audience
Okay.
to have to go through this. China, Russia, and Iran are holding military drills, and you don't see any reaction from the administration, which is yet another indication that China has bought the administration. Russia has attacked Kharkiv. To me, that always hits home because I spent time working in Kharkiv. First of all, training their police, making them into a more professional police force after the attacks of 2014, and then designing for them an emergency management center. Kharkiv is a fascinating situation of very brave people. Kharkiv is on the eastern end of Ukraine, sitting right up against Russia. Ukraine for a long time before the 14 invasion by Putin was not equally split, but close to equally split between pro-West and pro-Russia, because ethnically, some fairly large portion of Ukraine, not quite half, but pretty close to it, is half ethnically Russian, like half Russian, half Ukrainian. And then that eastern half of Ukraine, which is close to Russia, tends to be pro-Russian. So when it first became a democracy, the two parties split, as one being a pro-Russian party. That was the one that was thrown out of office in 2014. And the other being a pro-Western party. That's the party that wants to join the EU, NATO, wants to be, one party wants to be more like Poland and the now Lithuania and Latvia and what used to be Czechoslovakia, Slovakia. They feel an affinity with them, and the other half feels an affinity with Moscow. Kharkiv was the latter. It was a Russian, let's call it a Russian-Ukrainian city of large proportion because right on the border. And they always voted for the Russian party, Ukrainian-Russian party. When the animal who runs Russia invaded and killed men, women, and children in 2014, he attacked his own city. He attacked Kharkiv, started killing people there. They're on his side. I'm sure he didn't do it on purpose. His incompetent, as we found out, totally silly army that can't do a damn thing. Look at the trouble they're having in Ukraine against a much smaller, poorer country. Attacked Kharkiv. The mayor Kearns, who was pro-Russian, didn't take it. He organized a militia. They fought back, and they drove the Russians out. In the process, the mayor lost use of his lower extremities. When I met him, he was in a wheelchair. He died about a year ago, before the invasion, before the current invasion. And his deputy mayor, who was back then, even then, sort of the power behind the throne and very, very smart guy, took over. And I am so proud of the fact that they've beaten the Russians. I mean, Russia wants Kharkiv badly. It would be the northern portion of their land bridge to Crimea, and it's probably the second wealthiest city in Ukraine, if not per capita the wealthiest. And obviously a city of very resourceful people who were able to beat the Russians in 2014, and so far now beaten them. But they are now under attack again. This is almost like a Middle Ages, attack on a city where you stay outside the city for 2 years and try to starve them out. My money is still on the people at Kharkiv. Oh, and by the way, they have since changed. Even the Russians in Kharkiv are now pro-Ukrainian, because you also have in Ukraine Russians. So you have, I hate to use the word purebred. We were talking about dogs, but you have people who are fully Ukrainian, dad and mom are Ukrainian. You've got people who dad's Ukrainian, mom's Russian, or vice versa. And then you've got people who are fully Russian, but they're Ukrainian citizens. Not a lot, but so in the old days before Putin became the monster that he is, the elections would break down 50-50 between the pro-Russian and the pro-Western Ukrainians. They are now way over to the other, that pro-Russian portion. The people who were pro-Russian for ideological reasons or ethnic reasons, at least half of them have become pro-Ukrainian, if not more. So the one thing that the invasion has done is to create a unification of Ukrainian nationalism and unity against Russia. But I unfortunately think the Russians, aren't going to give up. They're going to keep going after Kharkiv because it is a mark against them that they have been unable to take this. I'm not going to say small city; it's the second biggest city to Kyiv, but still, it was their city. So we will talk in great detail, maybe tomorrow, maybe next week. But I mean, it's worth talking in great detail about the Ukrainian war, particularly now that DeSantis has made it a campaign issue. And it is something I have a great deal to contribute on. I've known Ukraine for, 20 years. And I've been there probably more often than most people and worked there. And then, of course, conducted the investigation of Ukrainian collusion and Biden bribery, which involved Ukraine. And was the person of President Trump the other night. I was very, very proud of this. If it wasn't for you, no one would ever know about how crooked this family is. I was the one who brought it out. Most of the one who's probably paid the most for it. A matter of concern, maternal deaths have hit the highest since 1965. And now it increases after COVID. I mean, we got to figure out what that's all about, right? And we've got a number of banks now that are teetering. Ted and I, on the way back from doing the radio show today, took some pictures of the banks that might be going under. I'm not going to show it to you, so we don't jinx them. And I felt bad. It's like, it's like writing an obituary while the person's still alive. But there's some pretty big banks, and it's true in the credits. Here's an article about Credit Suisse, and Credit Suisse is one of the strongest banks in the world.
That was kind of their reputation, right?
They are. I mean, so I'm not giving anything away here. They're in a lot of trouble, but there are several American banks that are in a lot of trouble. I mean, I wonder how deep this woke stuff went. So you look at Chase Bank, and Chase is not one in trouble. But even Jamie Dimon pulled the woke bullshit, We're gonna have a diversity officer, and we're gonna make sure that we have equity, and we'll give you loans because of the color of your skin or your background on much more favorable terms than someone else, which means riskier loans. Which means taking your money, violating normal banking principles, and giving it to someone who's much less likely to repay the loan. So if it's your money, fine. But what the hell are you doing with why are you doing that with my money if I don't want to do that? That has nothing to do with banking. That's an exercise. That's either a political or charitable exercise that should be made knowing that you want to take that. I don't put my money in the bank to make us safe from climate change that I don't believe we can be safe from, because I think the climate's going to change no matter what Greta Thunberg or Thunberg does. Can we just announce we feel sorry for her, but she's a big damn fool that's hurting the world? She said if we didn't do something about fossil fuels, very dramatic, the world was going to end in 2023. I guess we got a little time to go. So I'm not packing my stuff up. Okay, Greta. I think there's a much greater chance I could be in a lot of trouble because of Biden and climate change, to tell you the truth, or the Democrats in New York raising taxes and crime. And we got to get to the bottom. When Dr. Maria is back tomorrow, her first, although, you know, she's the president, so we can't give her orders. We're going to request that the good doctor explain to us why maternal deaths have hit the highest since 1965. That'll be on the agenda for tomorrow night. We'll put our boss to work. She has been in New Hampshire taking care of her house and her kids, and who are not kids. I mean, they're grown adults, but spending a little time with them. And of course, she got caught in a great snowstorm. She sent me pictures of it. It's fabulous. It looks fabulous there. Man, I wish we had gone with her. You know, like we go up there sometimes and we go in there's a hotel that we go to there that has a baseball field in the back. And I really felt really bad this week when she called me and told me there was like a foot of snow, because I wanted Ted to see this. I fell in love with this hotel the first time I was there. I was running for president, and we go into this hotel late at night. I go to sleep. I wake up in the morning. I open the curtains, and out in front of me is a baseball field filled with snow, but a real baseball stadium. Minor league ballpark of the Toronto Blue Jays. And I've since gone to many ball games there, but it's the Hilton Garden Inn, right?
That's right.
And I'll tell you, it's packed all the time. But I like them because they now are used to my radio show, and they have the Ethernet connection for it. So if you're ever in Manchester, New Hampshire, if you're running for president, you will be very soon. If you're covering it, we better start making our reservations now for late this year. I mean, the primary in New Hampshire is this year, because it's going to take place in January of next year.
Think we'll do some shows from up there?
Well, no doubt about it. I mean, the heavy campaigning in New Hampshire will start soon, because remember, the theory is you got to meet the voters 5 times before they'll vote for you. And I will also tell you, it's fun to campaign in New Hampshire. The people are smart as hell. I mean, I say that living in New Hampshire gives you a PhD in political science. That's all they talk about, because particularly now with the primary, because the primary is it's like a 2-year endeavor. It started even before the 22 election were over. When we were up there covering the 22 elections, they were already talking about the primary, right? Now they're talking about it big time. And as soon as the winter is over, everybody will be up there. So you're going to have apparently a lot of Republican candidates, despite the fact that Trump is running. I didn't think you would have any. If Biden were to ever drop out, you'd have about 40 or 50 candidates, Republican and Democrat. I doubt that Biden will make a trip there. There are several good basements for him that he could go to, and any number of very, very fine nursing homes for demented people like him. But let's also hope that Bragg doesn't try Trump for a crime that doesn't exist, and pays attention to the fact that people are leaving New York in record numbers because they're getting thrown on subway tracks, and nobody's doing a damn thing about it. And the mayor does one thing and says another, and then goes flits off to a nightclub, and he's really been a big disappointment. Not to me. I mean, he worked for me. He was a cop who never made arrests and did all kinds of political garbage.
Well, Mayor, the fastest hour on the internet is up. What is your closing message to our audience on a busy Thursday news night and going into a Friday?
Keep an eye on China. Don't fall for the Chinese propaganda. They are our intrepid enemy. They want to destroy us. They have announced that by 2048, they will be the dominant country in the world. Don't make the mistake that Europe made with Hitler and appease them. Hitler told us his intentions. We ignored it. Stalin told us his intentions. We ignored it. Bin Laden told us his intentions, and we ignored it. I don't know, 3 times. And now we're encouraging them with it is unless he can prove, and I mean, I'm not talking about a court of law now. I'm talking about the court of public opinion. Unless Biden can prove to me that somehow he's not influenced by the illegal money he got from China, I just assume he's bought by the Chinese. Every time he makes a decision that's irrational and favorable to China and against the best interest of the United States, I just say traitor. So we got to get ourselves through this presidency without our country being sold out by a president who was purchased. Now, why you voted for him is something, if you did vote for him, it's something you should think about all your life. Because by voting for him, you did great damage to this country. And it is true that you were operating under a fraud, but there was evidence there. There was evidence there of his being a crook. There also were signs of his being demented, right? He wouldn't come out and talk, and he wouldn't answer questions. And come on, you had a hint, right? Boy, did you do damage to us by voting for him. I can excuse it because of the fraud involved in the unbelievably damaging suppression of the hard drive, probably the worst censorship and suppression in American history by a group of the most un-American business people and journalists. But can you honestly say you didn't see hints of a decrepit old man? So we'll be back tomorrow. We'll see, because this is a day by day. This is a day by day thing with these banks as to how bad it is. There are some troubling comments that I didn't get into yet because they really haven't developed yet with regard to how there are other signs in the economy of the economy really being in trouble, but they're not. They're not definite yet, so why frighten people? We also didn't really go into the incredible revelations that are coming with Congressman Comer, of all of the people in the Biden family who were getting money from the Chinese communists. Sounds like they were a Chinese communist-supported family, and we put them in the White House. We got to question that, don't we? It's disgusting. I mean, the family's disgusting. I'm sorry. You say don't attack a family? Well, then don't give me a demented president. Then care about your country enough so you don't let your foolish grandfather, father, uncle, or whatever the hell he is, go to Cambodia and think it's Colombia. Don't let him start telling us that he put a Purple Heart on his uncle in the White House, and his uncle was dead for 7 years before he was ever in the White House. So don't give me a guy with Alzheimer's and dementia to run the greatest country on earth. And that's not a patriotic family. And I mean, part of this apparently involves Bo's widow getting money. So don't play the Bo thing for me either. All right. I'm sorry that Bo is dead. I wish poor Bo had lived. Hopefully he was different than the rest of the family, but he sure as hell had one hell of an awful family that he was in, who seems to not care one whit for the United States of America, since they allow their relative to slobber all over the world as our president, to fall climbing up steps, and to let him make decisions that imperil our very survival. Well, we'll be back tomorrow. We're going to have plenty more to talk about. We'll get a little further into, since this Comer stuff is news to you, but not to me, since I have the hard drive. I can give you a little bit more insight into who these family members were. And remember, it's been now 4 years that I put out my first chart of the Biden crime family. So, Congressman Comer, you're doing a great job, but you're way behind me. And please, you too, Comer, don't start this. We're trying to figure out if there's any evidence that the president got money. The evidence is right in your hands. It's called a text of December 18th, 2018. Go tell one of your guys to hit the little machine. It'll pull it out of the hard drive, and Hunter will yell out at you that he was given 50% to his dad for 30 years. Makes sense, right? So don't do the bull, huh? Come on. Let's play this straight. Well, God bless America. We'll be back tomorrow, and you can know one thing. I may be the one place where you get it absolutely straight. Nobody else wants to tell you that. I got a couple others like that I can tell you about. They won't tell you about. That are serious as hell. For your future, my future, and the future of our great country. Cut it out. Grow a pair of. See you tomorrow night.